All right, so good morning. My name is Douglas Ramos. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm hope that by now you all know me. And this is going to be about the rental lease procedure that we follow here in the office. Okay, so first, let's just tell me, are you able to see my screen? Are you able to see on your screen the screen that says rental lease procedure? Give me a thumbs up, or or
Yeah, I can see it.
all right, perfect. All right, so let's get started. Um, with the rentals, one of the things that you must be aware, this is something that not only the real estate commission, but the civil rights also pursues, HUD also pursues a lot, is complaints about discrimination. I personally feel that it is not worth it to end up with a fine or possibly a lawsuit, or maybe even lose your license because you inadvertently, without even thinking about it, you committed you discriminate against somebody. So always make sure that you're paying attention to the New Jersey law against discrimination, LAD, which is one of the toughest in the country, one of the toughest. And I think in the past, I have shown you guys the secret investigation that for 4 years, 4 years it took to investigate the Board of Realtors in Long Island. And I think I showed the video to you guys before. A lot of people got sued, a lot of people got indicted. Uh, Possibly many of them also lost their license because they without any malicious intention discriminated both in sales and rentals. So you know just wanted to start that, start the this training with that, saying that you need to make sure that you pay attention to the laws against discrimination. So all right. New Jersey requires all offers, contracts, or leases prepared by a licensee must indicate the business relationship the firm has with respect to parties. Name in a document. An acknowledgement of the CIS was received by the buyer slash tenant, seller slash landlord prior to the first showing of the property. Section 11.5, colon 6.9 of the New Jersey Administrative Code of Appendix B on page 440 of the Law of Rules and Regulations of the State of New Jersey. So the steps on dealing with a tenant, we're going to concentrate today in talking about a tenant, not a landlord procedure, but a tenant procedure. When we get a lead here in the office, when we get someone that says, I would like to take a look at a property that I saw in the internet that is for rent, what are the steps that the agent has to follow? Number one, the first one should be initiate a phone call. Initiate a phone call. If we send you the lead, call the person. That should be the number one. And your goal when you're calling the person is to get a face-to-face appointment. Not to tell them that you're going to send them more listings via email, is to get a face-to-face appointment. The chances of you converting that person into a client when you have them face to face, it's much greater than if you're doing it over the phone. Okay, and if you're not close to the office and you say, well, but I don't want to travel all the way to the office to do a face-to-face appointment with the client, go to a Dunkin' Donuts, go to a Starbucks, go to some place that you can meet with them, public place preferably, and have the meeting there. So step number one is initiate the call. Now, the next step is once you have set up a face-to-face appointment, then do a consultation, just like you do with the buyer. I'm sure that many of you do a consultation with the buyer. You don't take a buyer out without knowing if the buyer qualifies or is ready, willing, and able? Do you? Why are you going to do it with a tenant? So you gotta sit with them. You gotta be able to ask questions and find out, do they know the process? First question is, do you know that you may, chances are that in 90% of the time, you may end up having to pay for my services. A lot of times the consultation will end with that question because they'll say, no, I cannot afford it, or no, I don't want to pay your fees. Unless that you're willing to do pro bono work, then I think that at that point, the consultation ends. Okay. But the goal of you guys doing a consultation is to find out, to discover what's the motivation of the tenant. Do they know the process? Do they know that they have to get a report, a tenant report, that they have to pay for it? There is non-refundable fee for the tenant report. Could ask the questions, how's your credit? Do you have a social security number? Do you have any credit at all? Have you ever been evicted? Because they may not want to tell you, but it's kind of come out on the report. You got to ask the question. Have you ever been evicted? I could tell you that as a landlord myself, someone that has an eviction on their credit, in the credit report, I may not want to rent it. And that's not discrimination. That is not. But I may not want somebody. I'm going to set the rules. As a landlord, I'm going to set the rules. I want people that have a 600 or 620 score. I don't want anybody that has any evictions on the records. And I'm going to measure every candidate with the same rules. But you need to ask the tenant those questions from the very get-go. Well, after you have the initial consultation, you have discovered that the person has the means, is willing, is motivated, wants to do what you tell them to do, is going to do the credit report. Then you can start working with them, and then you can start searching and looking for properties. Start looking and searching for apartments that you can show them, right? Step number 4, once you have found them the apartment, then you're going to have to start negotiating. What are you going to negotiate? With the terms of the lease. When are they going to give him possession? The security deposit is a month and a half, a month's rent. You're going to negotiate the condition of the property. Maybe the tenant wants to pay a little less. You can negotiate those things. The amount on the MLS is what they're looking for, but you can negotiate. Are they going to reduce the price? Probably not, but it's for you to be able to negotiate that lease with the other agent and the landlord on behalf of the tenant. Once everything has been negotiated, step number 5 will be to give possession to the tenant. Now, when you give possession, I want you to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's. A lot of the things the agents don't do, not our agents in the office, but a lot of the agents don't do, is find out if the municipality requires a CO for a transfer of a tenant. I can tell you that not every municipality is going to require it, but some do. I can tell you that Cataract does require, if a tenant moves out and a new tenant moves in, Cataract wants you to do a CO for the tenant. And if you're representing the tenant, it's your responsibility to obtain it, to get the seller, the landlord, to get it for you. It's also your responsibility, if you undertake to work with a tenant, it's also your responsibility to find out. Call the municipality. Call the municipality where they're going to be renting and find out, do they need a CO for a rental? If they say no, perfect. If they say yes, they do, contact the other agent and let them know, hey, you know, they require a CO, and, you know, that's required a CO in the city. Is the landlord going to provide us one? Okay, make sure that all your documents are correct. And the last step is follow up, stay in touch, convert that to a buyer. Simple, 6 steps to be able to get or to work with a tenant that would require here in this office. So the first one, when you receive a lead via email, WhatsApp, again, your goal is to call the leads within 5 minutes to increase the chances of converting the lead. Your goal, once you have them on the phone, is to get a face-to-face appointment with them. For these, you will need to learn scripts. You know, you're going to learn scripts. Why 5 minutes? Well, the studies shows that the faster that you get to the person, the easier it is to convert them. Remember, they're not, you know, they're not just calling you, they're calling other agents. Whoever is the hungriest, whoever is more motivated, that's the one who's going to probably win that lead. But if you get a lead and you wait an hour, 2 hours, or the next day to call them, by the time you get on the phone, they already forgot what they called for. They already forgot what they called for. So look at the charts. Within a minute, you get a 70% chances to scheduling an appointment. Within 10 minutes, it gets decreases to a 49. Within 30 minutes, it goes even further to 46. 4 hours, 37. 1 day is 33. 2 days is 29. And within 7 days, pretty much 25%. I think that those percentages are high. It's probably a lot higher the more that you wait. Okay? And these are studies that have been done. As I mentioned, or as I said before, you're going to need to have scripts to be able to, just like you do with a buyer. And as a matter of fact, I think tenants is a good way to practice your ability, your skill to try to get people into a face-to-face appointment. Hi, my name is Douglas Ramos from Century 21 Alliance Realty. I'm calling because you made an inquiry about a rental apartment. If you have the address of the property that they call in, give them the address. I'd like to ask you, are you familiar with the rental process? Chances are they're going to say no. Chances are they're going to say no. So if they say no, you say, no problem. When are you available to meet so I can explain the process to you? So the moment they say no, that is your cue to say, well, come on to me, come to my office, and I will explain the process to you. Book the appointment. If they say, yes, we're familiar, we move every 6 months because, you know, we're gypsies, you know, we move every 6 months. If the answer is yes, great. So you have no problem paying me 1 month's rent plus the $39.99 non-refundable tenant screening fee. Because they may think they know, but they probably don't. If the answer says, no, I didn't know that, then go back and say, no problem. When are you available to meet with me and book the appointment? So here's a little bit more statistics about internet leads. Internet leads are not for everybody. Internet leads are for those who are willing to learn the skills to convert. A lot of times the agents say, well, no, the internet leads are no good. But I can give you examples of agents that are very, very successful with internet leads, same ones that you're getting, and they're converting. So question is it that the leads are not good or that you don't have the skills to convert them yet? So internet leads, responding to a leads, the faster that you respond to the leads, the better it is, the easier it is. So if you don't get a lead on the first call, do not give up. Keep trying until you get them on the phone, text them, email, call. Your goal with the lead is to get them on the phone. Once you get them on the phone, your goal is to get a face-to-face appointment. Once you get them in a face-to-face appointment, your goal is to convert them into a client. Step 2, initial meeting consultation. On the day of the meeting, please have the following paperwork ready for the meeting. It is your responsibility to become familiar with these forms. You decided to become a real estate agent. You decided to go and get licensed. It is completely your business. It is completely your responsibility to be familiar with the tools that you need to be an agent, a good agent, that is. Become familiar with the CIS, Consumer Information Statement. Should be the first form that the buyer tenant is going to sign. Become familiar with the tenant questionnaire, so you know which questions. You don't have to memorize them, just print them and have them in front of you so you can ask the questions. The exclusive tenant agreement. Become familiar with the exclusive tenant agreement. Now, this training is not about learning how to fill out those forms, it's about the process. Become familiar with the disclosed dual consent tenant, the W-9 form, the home buyer guide that we produce here in the office, both in English and Spanish. Now, right now, we don't have any more of those, but we do have it in a PDF format. If you need one, ask Nelson for it. The Protect Your Family from the Lead pamphlet. Become familiar with it. And become familiar with the booklet, The Truth About Renting. Okay? All these forms and pamphlets can be found in .loop under the tenant template. You should memorize the first 3 questions of the tenant questionnaire. And step number 2, be on time for the meeting. Dress business-like or business casual. No jeans, no sweatpants, no jean clothes. You're meeting a client. The first impression they're going to have about you, you want them to have a professional impression about you. Explain the CIS form and all the forms that I just named before. Obtain the tenant's signature on the CIS, then proceed to the tenant questionnaire and pay close attention to the answers to determine if the potential leads that you want to be working with is somebody that I want to work with. Are they qualified? Are they motivated? That's the whole reason of the questionnaire. If after you have carefully reviewed the answers of the tenant, your answer is yes, I do want to work with this person, this is the lead. I like to work with them, explain the exclusive tenant agreement along with the dual tenant consent and get them signed. And congratulations, you now have a client. Explain the Protect Your Family from the Lead pamphlet and the Truth About Renting pamphlet. Give the home buyer guide and explore the possibilities of turning them into buyers instead. Can they buy instead of renting? Are there potential quality leads that in the future you may want to sell them something? Then put them in your CRM, put all the information that you just learned about them in your CRM and your Moxie. And if they cannot buy they cannot buy right now and they have to rent, stay in contact with them because they will become your future buyers, future business, especially if they have a pleasant transaction with you as a agent representing a tenant. So at this point, you have a valid tenant lead. It's time to go to work. Now you got to start searching. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm also going to pause the recording so in case that you do have any questions. All right, so So now they sign the contract, sign the a tenant agreement with you, and you start looking for apartments. Now, normally you're gonna start looking in the MLS. That's what many of you start doing, and then and it's sometimes the only thing that you do is look through the MLS. But there are other portals that you can actually research, which is Zillow Rentals, for example, for rent by owners, for example, hotpot.com, rent.com, or Sumper. Those are all websites that you can go to and look for rentals. Sometimes the owners themselves put the rental, apartment in those websites without utilizing an agent. So you could go to these portals and look for the apartment and just approach the landlord as, I have a potential tenant who is willing to pay for my commission. Would you rent to my tenant? And if the answer is yes, show them the apartment. So don't limit yourself only to the MLS. Okay, that's another way also to get to know landlords or property owners and start a relationship with them. Okay, go to Google and type rent by owners, and you will get a number of sites that will do rentals. Look for rentals on these portals. If you find one in these portals, chances are that are also in the MLS. Call the landlord or the agent and verify the apartment is still available. If the apartment is available, go ahead and show it to them. Show more than once. You get them under a lease contract as soon as possible. Search the MLS, whatever is appropriate, Zillow, Sumper. Those are the sites that you can check. Once you found in the apartment, your next step is to prepare the lease. Please pay careful attention to the instructions on the MLS, on what the landlord told you, and follow them. When you are preparing the lease and all documentations requested, once you have all the paperwork ready, review twice, present and negotiate the lease with the landlord or the agent. Present them with all requested information for the tenant screening. Use the NTN link there. Become familiar on how this platform works. As a member of the Center 21 Alliance Realty, you get a free account, but it is your responsibility to learn the platform. Watch the videos so that you learn how to use the platform. And when I say pay careful attention to what the instructions in the MLS, this is what I'm referring to. See, in the MLS, it will say they need a month and a half security. They want to see a credit report. They want income verification. They want a tenant application. They want a tenant insurance. So if they say, well, we want the tenant to pay for insurance, you must tell the tenant, for this particular apartment, you're going to need to have an insurance. The landlord requires or requests that you have a tenant insurance. They're not that expensive, but a lot of people don't like to pay for them for whatever reason. They don't know that what they don't know is that the homeowner's policy covers the owner. It does not cover the tenant's belongings. I get to your answer once we get to the next slide. So it does not cover. So write it down just in case, or if you want to put it on the chat. It does not cover the tenant's belongings. The tenant has to get his own insurance for his own personal property. Notice that it says tenant pays commission. So you got 95%, I would say, 95% of the listings that are in the MLS for rentals are going to say tenant pays commission, or a combination of the tenant landlord. Tenant pays half, landlord pays the other half, but the bulk of it is going to say tenant pays commission, the bulk of it. So pay careful attention to this, because if you send an agent, most of the information, but you forgot to send them one of these documents, copy of, something that says that, yes, the tenant will pay the insurance, because I will put it in the lease. I will put these: tenant becomes responsible for paying the tenant's insurance and agrees and acknowledges that they will have that. I will add that to the lease. Tenant application. If you don't send a tenant application, or if you don't send verification of income, chances are you're going to get rejected. All right. So, Maoli, you had a question. You raised your hand. You had a question.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. I know the credit report is not the same as the TNT report. How can we pull the credit report?
The NTN application, or the NTN report, does give you a credit score.
Okay.
It does give you, and I believe I have a sample of it, so I'll show you one when we're done. So
No, I
it
already
does.
saw one because I requested already. Okay.
All right. We also have another question on the chat that says, does Section A pays for the commission of the applicant? My understanding is no, they don't. The tenant will have to borne that expense. The Section A will only pay for the lease, but they will not pay for commission. So if the person is in fact receiving Section A, you have to notify them. Section A is going to pay for your rent, or a portion of your rent. They will not pay my commission. So you have to have some money to pay for my commission.
And also, Douglas, they have to have security deposit by themselves.
Hey, thank you. And the security deposit, yeah, because the Section A is not going to give that. It's going to give them the money for the rent. All right, moving on. A month and a half security, month in advance, credit report, income verification, tenant insurance required, and then tenant/landlord pay commission. So you got to read and pay careful attention. The National Tenant Network has videos that you should go and watch, and I'll probably send you some links once we do this training on some of the videos that you can watch, so you can learn how to use the NTN, for example. Let me see if I can go back, but I gotta hit something here so that you guys can. Can you guys hear it?
I think your screen is too big. Well, I don't know if it's only me, but I see you too big.
No, it's not that. It's that there's something that I have to do to allow it for you guys to hear it. And I'm trying to remember what it is. There's something that it has to do with Zoom. So bear with me for a second here. Oh, I know what it is. Hold on. I stopped sharing, so you're not looking at it right now. So here's what we're gonna do. Bear with me for a sec. Now we're gonna share. Now we're gonna share sound. There you go.
Qualifying them? Staying up on current laws can be a daunting task. Plus, being wrong could cost you time and money. Tenant issues cost owners millions in lost revenue, repairs, and eviction costs every year. And if you deny someone based on inaccurate information, that could lead to violations of fair housing laws and thousands in potential fines. You need the whole story, and you need it to be accurate. NTN Review can help. NTN's time-tested, exclusive business approach combines the best technology with its team of experts to produce and provide reports that ensure maximum possible accuracy for the subscriber and the applicant. We look carefully and go through rigorous research and pull detailed credit, criminal, and tenant performance reports to make sure the reporting is on the correct applicant, is crystal clear, and hasn't been decided by a machine. Let NTN help you with your tenant screening needs and save time, energy, and money today.
So that's the reason why we use NTN. Make sure that we avoid some fines. They also have videos on how to use the system, by the way. So let's moving on.
Need quality tenants but feel ill-equipped?
All right. Once the lead has been presented, negotiated, and accepted, give the tenant and landlord copies of all signed documents. Collect tenant's deposit. A month and a half is the max allowed by the law in a residential. Hold on, are we recording? Yep. Collect the tenant deposit. A month and a half is the max allowed in a residential, okay? In the form of a money order or check payable to the landlord. Collect our fees from the landlord or the tenant in the form of certified check or money order payable to Center 21 Alliance. Remember to make copies of these money orders or checks and upload them to that loop. Give the tenant or landlord a pay receipt for the services rendered or the fees that they pay you. Possession, step number 5. Make sure you check the local municipalities and find out if they require a certificate of occupancy for rentals. If they do, ask the landlord if they will be providing one. Do a walkthrough with the tenant and the landlord to make sure that everything is fine with the apartment. Give the landlord the deposit, the rent, and the W-9, and remind him that the deposit needs to be deposited in the special tenant's account. If he does not have the pamphlet, The Truth About Renting, give him or her a copy. Make sure you have all signed documents on your dot loop and send them to the admin for review. Give the commission check or money orders to the front desk for deposit. Wait, you're not done yet. After you have found the apartment, negotiate the best lease terms, and the tenant has taken possession, comes the follow-up. Enter the tenant into Moxie Engage as a potential buyer and tag them as a tenant. The tag will trigger a tenant drip campaign to convert tenants into potential buyers for the future. Do not rely only on the emails to convert these prospects. From time to time, you need to give them a call. Section 8 tenants. You never ever ask, will the landlord accept Section 8? Let me repeat that. You, if you're representing the tenant, never, ever, ever ask, is the landlord going to accept Section 8? Don't ask that. It is a given. They have to. Unless the tenant doesn't qualify for something else, they cannot be discriminated just because they're Section 8. What you need to do is you need to educate those landlords on the myths of the Section 8. You never tell the agent, my client is a Section 8. Ever, ever. Don't ever disclose that to the other agent. You send them the paperwork that they require, let them send it right back to you, preferably in an email back saying, the landlord does not want Section 8. I don't want you to be ratting anybody out there. And but I do say that will protect you. That you can say, look, I have it on writing that they send it to me. If the agent is not smart enough and send it to you in writing, I think you should be out of the business. Present the landlord agent what they have requested in the MLS. Always make sure that you send all the information via email, paper trail. And if rejected, always ask the other agent to email you the reasons for the rejection. Valid reasons for the rejection could be not enough income to cover the rent, not worthy enough of the credit. Those are valid reasons. But if the person says, well, no, this person is Section 8, I don't want them, That is not a valid reason. That's a violation of the rules and regulations of the state of New Jersey, and it's a discrimination and a civil violation. So just so that you know. Now, also, somebody asked me, and I don't have, and I'll add these in here. Somebody put in the chat and asked, what about pets? Well, the law is very specific way. The law is very specific. If there are service animals, you cannot discriminate. You have to go back to life. We're not talking just about pets. We're talking about if the person is in a wheelchair. We're talking about, people that are handicapped. They cannot be discriminated either. If the person says, well, I need to put a ramp in the front in the house to be able to get in, the owner gonna say, as long as the tenant is willing to pay for that ramp and is willing to remove it or leave it and assume the cost of that, the landlord cannot say no. Okay. As far as pets, if it's a service dog or an emotional, now the landlord can create rules, and that's up to the landlord to create his rules. I would strongly suggest the landlord to go talk to an attorney. If people that buy 2 families, 3 families, and 4 families, when you go to court, and I've been to court many times on behalf of the banks, and I hear them when the judges are just hammering those homeowners because they tell them, you bought a 2-family house, you went into the business of being a landlord. It is your responsibility as a landlord to know the law. And 98% of the people don't know the law when it comes to landlord and tenant. So they should be able to go to an attorney and say, look, I bought a 2-family. I want to have some rules and regulations that I want all my tenants to comply with, but I don't want to violate any law in the state of New Jersey because I don't want to be sued. And let the attorney write the rules and regulations that you want. You're probably going to tell him what is it that you don't want them to do, and he will tell you whether that is legal or not. I'm not going to tell them because I'm not an attorney. I don't expect you guys to tell them because you're not an attorney, but I would strongly suggest that you let people know that, because if someone says, well, I want to have a pet, it's an emotional. Number one, there's a lot of people that go to the internet to get the certification that says that you need an emotional pet or an emotional animal, and therefore force the landlord to get it. So number one should be if I'm going to allow it, because the law requirements to allow, I can at least say, well, I want them to be from a recognized name doctor or something like that. So that we know that it's not somebody in the internet buying something that is completely fake. And then you're going to put rules into how is that going to behave? Are they going to be allowed to go into the backyard on leash? Especially if you have other tenants, and if there's kids there. Do they need to be registered with the city? So you got to know. And I'm not here to tell you the law. I'm not here to tell you the law. You need to be able to let the client know that, listen, you want that. You need to be able to get the rules and regulations from the attorney. That gets complicated. Alex, you have a question.
Yeah, about the when the owner reject the application for Section 8, what happens if they call you instead they send you an email?
Then tell them. Then send it to me in writing.
So they gotta do it. They have to.
Yeah. So tell them that. Tell them I need to be able to communicate that in writing to my tenant, to my client. So please send it to me in writing.
Okay.
If not, tell them, if not, I'm going to have to let them know that I have no reason. He's going to have to do what he needs to do. He may want to put a complaint against you.
Okay, thanks.
Douglas, about the Section 8 now, like he said, let's say you have 3 offers for a tenancy. One is Section 8 and 2 are guys. Let's say one is a truck driver and the other is, let's say, whatever. And the landlord has a right to choose one of them. He has a right to reject Section 8, not because of Section 8, but because, like my client said, he is a truck driver. He needs a, backyard and garage, and he has good income, so I choose this guy. That's not that's okay, right? Because
Yes,
it doesn't mean
he's not rejecting them because of Section 8. He's rejecting them
Yeah.
because of another threshold that he put. And this is what I would do, and this is basically like my rentals, how they handle. Number one, I'm going to measure everybody that's in the same bar, meaning that if I say, well, I want people that have a credit score of 620, 630, or 600, then everybody's going to be measured with that bar. If you have less than 600, then I'm sorry, I'm rejecting you. I'm rejecting you not because of what your income is, but I'm rejecting you because of your credit. I am going to put in my, when I do this, I'm going to put, I'm not going to accept anybody that had a previous eviction. Then I'm not discriminating anybody. It's just like, look, you already showed that you don't pay your bills, you don't pay your rent, you got evicted. I don't know what you got evicted for, but I'm going to measure everybody by the same rule. And that's what the landlord, that's what the homeowner needs to do. They need to be able to say, everybody's got to be measured by the same rule. But I can't say, well, Alex, you know what? No, I'm not going to rent to you because maybe I just don't like you. But I like Dan. No, because I'm changing the game. I'm changing the rules of the game for everybody. Think about this, think about it this way. Imagine if in a soccer game, the referee says, well, I'm going to call yellow cards on this team because I don't like him, but I'm going to call, I'm not going to call the same plays on this team because I kind of like them. And changing the rules, that's discrimination. Same thing. Smart landlord would not do that and say no. The truth of the matter is that the landlords, and this is a myth, by the way, this is a myth. The myth is people think, oh, Section 8, deadbeats, not really. That's not true. That's a myth. That's a myth. I have Section 8 tenants in my buildings. I get my rent every month. I know the rules that they have to live by. I give a copy of the rules to the tenant, and I give a copy to the Section 8. In fact, I know that if they violate that, and I tell them, because here's the truth of the matter, Stan, you're Section 8. Government is paying for your rent. Do you want to lose that? You want to lose the $1,800 that they give you a month to pay for your rent? Would you risk losing it, Stan?
no, but
No,
my
right?
point was
no, you're not going to risk losing it. So if you're violating some of the rules they give you, or one of the rules that I gave you, and I say to you, look, if you do it again, I'm going to complain to your caseworker, you may lose your voucher. Chances are you're going to stop. Chances are you're going to stop. So, but saying that because this is a truck driver and this is, it needs, a parking or makes more money, then the landlord should know. And that's why we use NTN. Do you guys know how many times NTN has to multiply the amount of income for the tenant to be qualifiable to rent? Because a lot of the landlords don't know. How many landlords do you know that know how much income the person needs to have? All they care is, oh, I need them to pay me on time. But in order for them to pay you on time, they have to have certain amount of income, right? They have to have certain amount of income because they need to pay the rent, they need to pay for probably car payments, they need to pay for food, they probably need to pay for clothes. So you're going to qualify in the same way that you kind of qualify a buyer. Not all the money. If the rent is $2,000, you don't want somebody that is making $2,000 because that's a recipe for disaster. So I'm going to show you guys the section, the NTN I'm gonna stop sharing that, and we're gonna go here. All right, so notice that here, say NTN, okay? It has the social security, it's got the date of birth, even though the social security, you never get in touch with the social security. You don't know the social security of the person. That's the first layer of protection that you have when you use the NTN, which is if anything happens to the creditor of that person, they cannot say, well, the last person I gave my social security was the realtor at Century 21. And then after that, they stole my identity. Because they want to know, how do you secure the social security numbers of these people? So that's why the NTN has their own proprietary ways of doing it. Date of birth, income, the amount of rent. Okay, it gives you the score, and it tells you where do they fall in with the score. Okay, it gives you all these information. Okay, unlawful details. It checks the tenant for a database of terrorists. And I want to go back in here. Has anybody run an NTN report recently?
I did.
Who?
I have.
2 months ago.
Oh, okay. So does it have, because I thought it had somewhere in here, look, it has bankruptcies, the information of bankruptcies. I thought it had, that they do. This is just an example because I cannot show you guys a real one, but I thought it had the credit score in it.
I did one on Saturday. It doesn't show you the credit score. It should, the score that you see in the first
This one.
page. That should be like an overall for everything. And that 55 is very bad.
Yeah.
Well, this is an example, so yeah.
Yeah,
This
but
is this.
like no, usually people don't take the people that are that low, 80 and
Correct.
up.
You gotta
Yeah.
be 80 and up to be able to do it. Okay, so for
the
some reason I thought it
The
had
credit
credit
score is
report.
right usually on the first page, but on this case you don't have it. But yes, you have a credit score of them.
They
Usually it's
do,
lower
right?
than people think. Yes, it's right there on the first page, but people think it's usually lower than people thinks they have. Let's say he thinks he has 780, but he's gonna have 720 or 750. Same like with the
Correct.
mortgage.
I remember seeing it. That's why in this sample I don't see it, but I remember
Yeah, the
seeing
first
it
page.
in the report that there is a credit score that they give you. So there is a
So
credit score.
maybe sometimes because the one that I run didn't have it, but my clients have a TIN number, and also on that page,
Oh, okay.
instead of say Social Security, it say unable to identify. So I don't know if a Social Security for a TIN number get a
Yes.
score
No, they
differently regular.
correct. So here's what I understand about NTN, which is if your client does not have a social security, if your client only has an ITN number, ITN, they will accept it. You can put the ITN number in the application. It's just not going to give them any score because the ITN is not going to, it doesn't run credit score with that. So it's not going to give them any score. And that's the reason why you're not seeing it. But if the person has a social security, it's going to run their credit score. Now that's another thing that you have to be able to be aware of it, explain to, because they're going to ask you, an agent was probably going to ask you, why does this person not have any score?
The realtor actually asked me, and I explained to him, and because my client score was so high, the husband was 90 and the wife the husband was 92 and the wife 90, they didn't have an issue with no showing
Correct.
the
So
credit.
some landlords are going to take it. They're not going to have an issue with it, but you got to let them know. You have to let them know. Okay. You don't want them to discover that and then come back and say, well, why didn't you disclose it? The dot loop. Now let's move on to the dot loop, which is the dot loop. What you're going to be looking for when and then remember, we're concentrated today on talking about lease rental with contract package, which is tenants. This is the document that this is the, not the document, but this is the template that you're going to select. This is the template that you're going to select when you're doing a lease agreement for a tenant. First thing that you have there is the residential lease. All these documents are going to be there. All right. You're going to have the consumer information statement, which you require. The informed consent to a dual agency in case that you show them something that we rent, then we list it, then you're
I'm
a
sorry,
dual
Doctor.
agent.
Not showing that, it's showing the screen for the NTN still.
Oh, it's still showing that? Okay. How about now? How
And
about now?
good.
Are you
It's-
able to see the one that says templates?
Yes,
Okay, so the template, going back, the template you're gonna select is going to be the lease rental contract package. This is for when you, oh, sorry, look, templates. It's going to be the lease rental contract package. It's going to have, in that package, you're going to have the residential lease. You're going to have the CIS form. You're going to have the informed consent to dual tenants. You're gonna have the rental commission statement. That's the one that you're gonna give to the landlord or the tenant if they pay the commission. It's going to have a spot for you to insert the lead-based payment that you requested from the listing agent. It's going to have the truth in renting pamphlet in Spanish and English, as well as protect your family from the lead. It's going to have the NTN client service instructions for you on how to request the NTN. Tenant credit summary request, which is the form that you're going to need to use once the tenant has filed an application with NTN. You have to request the report that I showed you early. This is the form that you're going to need to use. It's going to have the protect your family against the lead in Spanish. It's going to have the list of questions that you should be asking the tenant when you're interviewing them. And it's going to have the steam radiator notices, which is required. Okay, if the property is heated by steam. All right. So remember, this is the package that you're going to select, or the template that you're going to select when you're in that loop. Alex, you have a question?
Yeah, where can I find the exclusive tenant agreement?
Exclusive tenant agreement. Okay, so if you want to sign the exclusive tenant agreement, you're going to add it to the loop, but you're going to have to come here to templates and just search under. When you're searching, you're going to make sure that you're searching, and I'm going to move out of here. Let me see. Right now I'm on a different. So I'm going to go to my profile. So here I'm in my profile. If I want to do these, for example, I have the loop already, and I want to add to these the document that you requested. I'm going to click add a document to the template. I want to put browse. I'm going to and I'm going to browse from the template. Browse from the template. Go to Century 21 library, and I'm going to put exclusive or tenant agreement. Anybody, tenant screening summary, tenant requires exclusive tenant agreement right here. So I put a check mark and I say copy. It's going to copy that into your loop, and it's going to put it into the loop that you have created. So that's how you find it. Okay. The instructions that we had, and I'm going to go back to the other profile to show you that. Because a lot of times I get questions. So where do we get the instructions from? Well, if you go to that template, and I'm going to go to the templates again, loop templates. I'm going to go to the tenant lease rental. Remember, this is the name of it. Okay, the NTN service agents instructions. You can search for it in our library under this name, NTN client service agents instructions. Click on it. You can print these if you want. Let's see why it's not opening. Oh, because I'm in the, hold on. What's the name of it? Because NTN client service. I'm in the loops, so that's why it doesn't allow me to open it. Okay, so if I go here again, I'm gonna open a loop. And I'm gonna search for a template. Oh, I'm gonna go back to the loop, sorry. See, Rosie was right. She was like, call Nelson or JP, he doesn't know how to use that loop. Add a template. This is only gonna allow me to see it. Hold on, I wanna open it. What's called client service, right? NTN client service, agent instructions. If you open that, here's the NTN. Here's the videos. These are the videos for the discrimination investigation that they did on Long Island. Here's step number 1. There's also a phone number that you can call if you have any questions, but the step number 1, what you need to do. Step number 2 will be to request the report. And here's, I don't think Elizabeth is there anymore because the last time they were requested, we want them to do a training for you guys. They told us it's somebody else. She's no longer there, but that's still the number that you can call if you need help. But here's a step. It's just 2 steps, step 1 and 2. The first step is to give this link to the tenant. So the tenant himself, or with your help, if you're there with them, can fill out the application and pay for it because they have to pay for it with their credit card. And then step number 2 will be to request the report from NTN. And there is a specific form that you use for the request. Anybody remembers the name of that form? Tenant credit summary request. Now, this is step number 2. You have to fill out these form. You put your agent's name here. You put your phone, your email. You create a password. You put the name of the applicant that you're requesting the report from, and you put the monthly rent that they put in their application. If they're Section 8, you're going to put a check mark here. If they have received a notification of the tenant, you put another check mark here. You basically email this form to this number, or you fax it to this number, and they will send you the report, your tenant report. All right, so do we have any questions? And this is the website for the NTN. Do we have any questions?
Nope.
All right, so basically you should all know how to deal with a tenant lead. So I am going to make note of the people that were in the training, together with the one that I'm doing later tonight, so that you guys are the ones that are receiving the bulk of the tenant leads. All right. Any questions? Because if you don't have any questions, I'm done. That's all I have. That's all
Well,
she wrote.
I just want to say, Douglas, with NTN report, when you receive, remember, NTN doesn't check the income verification. That's why you have to ask, if you represent landlord, you have to ask, the tenant for pay stubs.
There you go. NTN does not request, well, they do request it though. You have to put in the income, but they don't request proof. So if the tenant is asking you, well, we want to see proof of the income, then you as an agent have to basically request from the tenant copies of the pay stubs. Make sure that you cover, typically in the pay stub, I believe the Social Security is already covered, but make sure that you cover any information that is personal of the tenant. And let them know you need them because the tenant has requested them, the landlord. Do pet deposit apply to service emotional support animals? And what if the pet comes after tenancy has been established? Well, number 1, I think, again, and I'm going to put the disclaimer there. I am not an attorney. My name does not say Douglas Ramos ESQ at the end. So I don't have that, that law degree to give you the correct answer. I would say you always want to check with an attorney, but my understanding will be that if they did an agreement, a lease agreement, and they brought a pet after the agreement has been signed, the landlord has the right to say no, because they have not asked permission. They sign a lease agreement, they put, you know, they didn't have any. If you ask the question, or if you had it that, you know, no pets allowed. Now, pet, you know, a service animal or an emotional animal is not considered a pet. Can you ask for a deposit? I'll double check. I believe you can. I'll double check for you, but I believe you can. Something that is reasonable. But I believe that they have to be from the get-go, from the very beginning. They cannot bring it in the middle of the 3 months into the lease agreement. They bring in a pet and say, "Oh, you know, the doctor says that I need one." Well, number one, you should disclose that at the beginning. Number two, I would like to see proofs from the doctor, and it cannot be an internet doctor. I would probably make that rule. It cannot be an internet doctor. It has to be from a reasonable, reputable doctor in New Jersey. And then I will make rules of how the owner of the emotional animal needs to attend it, right? They still have to take care of it. For example, if they have a dog and they take him out in the yard to do his business, who's responsible for cleaning? And if you violate those rules, then I can evict you. I allow you to have it, but you got rules. You got rules that you have to behave with. Not allowed to be, you know, to be out in the backyard without a leash.
Douglas, I have a question on that. If you're able to provide the landlord with a letter that says that's an emotional pet, whatever, support pet, but still the landlord doesn't want to use that as a breach of contract, is he allowed or that's illegal?
I'm not following you. So if the
If
tenant,
it comes after the fact, you sign a lease, and then a couple of months after, you get a dog, and you get the doctor letter saying that you need a dog at home, can the landlord still say, "I don't agree," or he's obligated to take it because it's an emotional support pet? Do you get what I mean? Like
it's
legally.
I know what you're talking about. It's just that it's complicated because of, you know, now you're asking me to answer you something that even an attorney will have a hard time probably answering you, which is you sign a lease agreement. There were no animals. When did you went to the doctor? What was, you know, the diagnosis, and, you know, why did you not present and request from the landlord the approval to have it? Because, you know, like, if you already have a lease with me, right? And the lease says, I'm going to put it to you in a different way. If you already have a lease with me and the lease says that it's 2 people that are going to live in the property, and all of a sudden I discovered there are 5 of them, is that right? Or are you violating the lease? I think you are violating the lease.
You
If
are
you,
on that
if,
case,
if
but my
you,
question is with the doctor.
if you put an application and you have no support animal, no you know, service animal with you, I want to know when you went to the doctor and you were diagnosed with that. And 2, I would say, well, why didn't you bring me that and ask for my permission? Why did you just brought it in? Like, if it's like, I don't give a, you know, I don't give a whatever about the owner of the property. The doctor says I have to have it, I have to have it. No, I think you, in my opinion, I believe you still need to go to the owner of the property and say, listen, I went to the doctor requests, or the doctor said that I need to have an emotional animal. Would you allow one? I think you still have the obligation to do that to the landlord. And if the landlord says no, then I don't know what the tenant can do. Maybe the tenant can say, well, the doctor says that I can, you cannot discriminate. But you still gotta go to him.
That was my question. Is that a discrimination? Is considered a discrimination if the person have the letter?
I think there's a difference between
a
service animal and emotional support animal. In my experience, a service animal, it's like, say someone became blind 6 months into their leash. You cannot. They are coming with the service
it's 2 different
animal.
things. Yeah, it's
2 different things. Emotional support, I believe as landlords, we have more leeway. Service animal, absolutely 100%. You cannot discriminate against them. Somebody went blind. Somebody has epilepsy. Somebody has seizures. You cannot. That I know for a fact, just with working with ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. You cannot. However, emotional support animal can be faked from the internet and all that. I believe there we have, as landlords, you have some leeway.
And you
yes,
can,
but a service
make
animal,
rules.
absolutely, you cannot discriminate. If someone's blind, you cannot.
And
that's what I know.
And you can put rules on that. And you can put rules. I would strongly suggest that, you know, the landlords need to be able to verify those things with an attorney. Because you don't want to be, you know, in a position that says, well, no, it's still discrimination, I want you out. Because the moment that, here's what's going to happen. The moment that you get to court, your case is going to be thrown out.
Or you just deal with it until the lease runs out and then don't renew. I mean, there's always options.
Yeah. All right. I hope that answers your question, but more than likely that you need to go to an attorney to be answered, you know, to be able to get a better answer to that, because that's not an easy situation to deal with. All right. Any more questions? Do we have any more questions?
Just make it sure. So if I have client who had 2 service dog, was 2 German Shepherd, to be honest, it's a real story. And he's gonna apply for a lease, like now we have these apartment buildings, so they have to accept him, yes?
If it's a service animal, yeah, like service, remember there's two, there's a service animal and there's an emotional animal.
Yes, it was service, but he had two German Shepherds, which is a little bit crazy, but he had the paperwork and everything for it.
If he has the paperwork, you know, you cannot discriminate because of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But in that case, even if the lease says the pets doesn't allow?
No, because they're not considered pets. A service
okay.
animal is not considered a pet.
Okay.
Anybody else? I think that seems to be the hot topic, like, you know, like pets or service animals. But
if anybody gets an answer from any attorney or a resident that we have that could answer that question, that would be great if we could get follow-up on that.
Rosie, you want to send me an email? I'll send it to one of the attorneys or a couple of the attorneys, see what answers we get. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to send it to 2 or 3 different attorneys. Let's see what the answer is from the 3 different attorneys, because I guarantee you that we're going to have probably a different answer from each one of them. But send me an email with that question, Rosie.
I will. And also send us a couple of attorneys, because this tenant situation, sometimes lately I see a lot of problems with tenants, and people ask me about attorneys, and I don't know any, like, real estate attorneys are not necessarily rental attorneys.
Correct. They're not necessarily brushed up on the landlord-tenant laws.
Especially when we have clients that are looking to buy multifamilies and they're trying to get into landlord negotiations. It'd be good to really have a good answer to give them when the question arises, because clearly you want to rent their place once you sell them the multifamily unit.
And if you're taking landlords as your clients, you should be knowledgeable about that, so you can educate them on, you know, what's right and what's wrong.
Douglas, that's what Stephanie said. Now it is a very touchy subject, because when we sell those multifamilies, I have got people calling me about situations that they get with the tenants, like, how do I take these tenants out? And we don't want to be giving the wrong advice. Can you put together a seminar where when an attorney for tenants come and explain to us all, you know, like what we can answer and the limitations on stuff like that?
We could, well, you know, we had that already. Remember, we have Carlos Sanchez that came in and gave us a very good training on landlord tenant. And he told us, I am not one. I don't do landlord tenants, but I'll tell you what I know about landlord tenants, issues. I can reach out to other attorneys and see, you know, who would like to come into the, into this forum and do a webinar where we can answer all of those questions. It will not be about procedures or anything. It will be like directly into having answers. For that, what I would need from all of you is Send your emails, send emails with your questions, legal questions that you would have. But I can tell you one thing, you as a real estate agent have an obligation, and the obligation is to say what? Because this I can tell you for sure. These I don't have.
I'm not a legal expert. I can only advise, send you to somebody who's an expert
so
in that field.
Correct. So you don't want to be giving any legal advice, because you can be accused of practicing law without a degree. So you always, even if the attorney tells you this is how it is, you never tell the person this is how it is. You're always going to say, listen, in my experience, this is what I've seen happen, but you always want to check with your attorney. Because if you give it as a fact that that's how it is, and they go wrong, that person can go back after you, or they can say, you told me, and they can say, well, you're practicing law without a degree. So that's why you always say, look, I'm not an attorney. You always should consult with an attorney on these, but this is my experience on that. Like I said, I'm not an attorney, but my experience being in the landlord-tenant court, and I see how the judges drill people that have no experience on being a landlord, it's tough. I'm not an attorney, though. That's just my experience, what I've seen.
Sorry, Douglas. Are there any landlord associations? The state of New Jersey, a landlord group? I mean, I'm sure maybe Facebook. I haven't checked, but I'm just curious. Is there some sort of, like, for landlords? Yeah.
Just I don't know if I don't know of any New Jersey landlord association. I know that there's landlord associations. Typically, it's mostly for people that are, they don't cater to like ones and twosies, like mom and pops. It's typically for people that have multi-units, like apartments in multiple apartment buildings, so they can stay abreast, or they can stay up to date with the law and practices, not just law, but practices, best practices for people that own or rent apartments, and people that manages those apartment buildings. But I don't think that there's anything for the mom and pops that own 1 or 2 families, that they rent. But I'll look into that.
Thank you.
All right. So any more questions?
And the last one, I got an apartment where the rent was $3,000, and the MLS says the commission only 1,000, split 500 the tenant, 500 the owner, and the agent told me that was the owner's decision. That is right?
I'm going to answer you that with a question. Do you think it's right? What did we learn?
I think it's right, but
yeah,
I was
what did we learn?
What did we learn?
What did you learn in the real estate class? What did you learn about commissions? They're negotiable.
Yeah, it's negotiable.
Yeah, it's negotiable. So that means the agent went in there and the owner told them, look, the most I'm going to pay you for you doing the services is $1,000. The agent accepted, then he's right. There's no ifs and buts. Now, do you have to accept the $500? Not necessarily. Don't show the property. That's all you.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because at the beginning I thought when
now if you show it,
if
you show it and your client wants you, then you know that that's what you're going to get paid. You cannot change that. All right. But it is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Any more questions? Do we have any more questions? Let me see. What do we have in the chat? I think we answer. I think I answer all of your questions. All right. Basically, that's it. That's all I have. I'll see you guys, during the week. I'll be here in the office, and I'll be doing these again in the evening for some of the other agents. Okay. So have a good rest of the week, guys, and go prospect. Go get some listings out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Douglas. Bye-bye.